There's a lot of struggle with leaving the NFL. How did you make that transition from the NFL to being a real estate mogul?
Everybody hears the horror stories about going broke, and I never wanted to be one of those guys. It's great to make money, but I think it's worse to have money and lose it.
You're a huge part of why we won, because if you didn't play hard, Todd's going to get you.
How the Broncos going to do this year?
So this is breaking news I haven't, really told anybody yet.
Okay.
I think they're going to be solid. And you know why? Because this fall,
Well, listeners and viewers, we have a treat for you because our next guest, we're huge fans of our next guest, not just because he's a former teammate, because of what he's doing after football.
Yes, we have the incredible number 51, Todd Davis, 7-year NFL veteran, Super Bowl 50 champion, captain for the Broncos, incredible teammate, undrafted. We don't like you drafted players. But Todd, welcome to the show, my brother. What's good?
Okay, I love it. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that I got an opportunity because it's hard to get on the show for you viewers out there. It's very hard to get on this show. There's a long list, so I'm happy I made the cut.
You're at the top of it, man. I mean, you went from a 7-year NFL career, and now you are building funds, building houses, building relationships with contractors. How did you make that transition from the NFL to being a real estate mogul?
Well, that transition is something that really is not talked about a lot. And I think a lot of guys struggle with finding their identity, depression, and just reinventing themselves after football. So for me, I knew that was like something people struggle with. So I wanted no downtime. Like literally the day I signed my paperwork, a week later, I bought my first home. Like I didn't want to get stuck on the couch. I didn't want to just, get stuck in the mud. And I didn't want my kids seeing me home too often.
Right.
Because I felt like they're still like moldable. And I want to help them become hardworking, good people. And I thought if they saw that at home every day, they wouldn't have understood the work that I actually put in to be able to be at home. They just more so would see me at home.
Yeah. Man, so talk to me about, you said you got straight to it right when you retired. What was it like? I mean, obviously you're still building and you've been retired for a couple years now, but like, just as I know as transition, regardless of, what we're all doing now, there are those moments where it is a little tough or you do miss the game. So talk to us a little bit about what those moments were like.
Yeah, it did get tough. I think, with anything, it's always a learning curve. And I felt like for me, the hardest transition was football. If we have a meeting at 7 o'clock, everybody's in their seat by 6:55 and the coach is going to start at 7 o'clock. Well, when you get into the real estate world and you start working with the lovely trades and people in that space, you say, we need to meet at this project at 8 o'clock. By 8:30, no call, no text. You call them at 9 o'clock. Oh, yeah, something come up. I'll be there like 2 o'clock. And for me, that was always tough for me to deal with because I was so regimented. And I didn't want to waste anybody's time. I didn't want anybody to waste my time. So it was definitely a learning curve I had to come up against to try and just navigate this new space.
I'm still struggling with that with people. Like, I just don't understand how people, like even today with this podcast, you're like, hey, something came up. I might be a few minutes late. But like Kyle Shanahan always said, everything can be fixed with a phone call or communication.
Yes.
Yep.
And the fact that people don't do that in like the real world, or they don't think like showing up 5 minutes early isn't hard to do.
Yes.
Like it's just pure common courtesy. But I think I'm still struggling with that with people.
Man, there's a lot of struggle with leaving the NFL because the structure, not only the exercise component, that's different too. Like you still got to exercise for your mind. What were some key things you had to do, Todd, that separate from signing and getting into that house in the first week, which that's amazing. But what were the things you're like, okay, I've got to do this to be successful beyond football?
For me, I tried to continue the pattern of training camp in my next endeavor. So the way we wake up and how we're basically on for 12 hours in a day before we shut it off. That's kind of how I made my day because I really didn't want to have any downtime, like I said. So the moment I wake up, I go work out, and then for the rest of the day, I'm on. And I schedule my meetings back to back to back with 30 minutes in between. And I'm going seeing properties, and I don't really shut off until like 6 o'clock at night because I'd rather not sit and scroll on Instagram. I think that's how I'm going to get stuck. And once again, so I try to be as jam-packed as days as possible so that I can stay on, my mind can stay on. I'm reading books, I'm listening to audiobooks when I'm driving. I feel like everything I try to do is intentional with my preparation for the next step, and not just letting an hour go here or there, letting 2 hours go where I'm not doing much scrolling on social media.
Let's talk about just your journey as an undrafted player. You and I both came out the same year. I don't remember actually what week you joined the team, but I do remember your first practice because you go hard, and undrafted players, we don't have any room for error. But you were going hard, and I think DT caught a pass or something like that, and he stepped on your foot and rolled his ankle, and everybody was at your neck because, DT was, the late, great Demaryius Thomas, our best player on offense.
For sure.
And I'll never forget Coach Tyke was like, hey, man, we might cut him today.
Ooh.
Because you can't injure the players. And I didn't know anything about this. I'm a rookie. Tell us about that first day as a Bronco.
Oh, man, it was tough. I felt the heat. I can say that for sure. I even called my parents like, hey, I think I'm out of here. I think it's over for me. Yeah, man. Just because I was trying to prove myself, but like you said, that's one thing. Star players, you can't injure them. They're too important to the success of the team. And I thought I had just injured our best, receiver at the time, and so I thought it was over for me. And that was tough, but thankfully DT was very, very. He was great about it. He came, he was like, man, I appreciate the work ethic. My ankle will get good. It doesn't really hurt like that. And I knew he was in pain, but, he played it off for me to make me feel more comfortable. It did help a little bit. I did still feel nervous though. But, just a great man. And even helping me when I did something to hurt him, I think that shows his character.
Absolutely.
I remember the first practice, it was a walkthrough. And one of my favorite things about you as a teammate, Todd, you don't give a right? And so I've never seen somebody with a mouth guard in. And so I was like, what the He's like, this is the business. This is how I call. I'm like, all right. And then we went to practice, I think next day or a couple of days, and I hit him. He's like, I'll see you again. I was like, oh, I love that. Where did you get that from? Where did you get that ability to be yourself the way that you knew you had to be, and also encounter obstacles and overcome it?
I think it was instilled in me from a young kid. So my dad was a pastor growing up. So I think my faith plays into it, and kind of just feeling secure in who I am. And then everything I do unto God, not for men. So I got to go 100%, whether somebody likes it or not, because I got to show God that, this opportunity that you've given me, I'm making the most of it, and I'm grateful for it. So that's kind of why I go so hard. And I fell in love with Ray Lewis and YouTube in high school. And those Ray Lewis videos were classics, where he was working out 7 days or 6 days a week, and on the 7th day he couldn't get out of bed. I just felt like that's what you had to do if you wanted to make it to the NFL. So those two things really got ingrained in my mind early on, and that's why I am the way I am.
Todd was one of my favorite people to talk to during practice.
Oh.
It was all right, we in a training camp day. Todd was one of the people he gonna bring the energy. You got
Every day.
your Akeem Talibs, and you got your TJ Wards, but then you got your linebacker who's like, oh, you better not come across the middle. It's like, I'm coming across the middle.
Yeah. Well, you kept us honest every day. You're a huge part of why we won, because you had to be honest. Because if you didn't play hard, Todd's gonna get you.
He's
gonna get you now.
Take us back to the Super Bowl year, man. What stands out to you in terms of the year we won? What was special about that defense? Obviously, I would say it's arguably the top defense ever. And, the 85 Bears, and then you got that Ravens team, and then that Seahawks team. But, those are all interchangeable. But take us back to that year. What do you really remember about that year?
What I remember most about that year, I feel like, is the selflessness of all the players on the team. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you look at that roster was loaded with talent. First string to second string. I mean, some second string guys we had went on to get monster contracts. You got guys like Shaq Barrett backing up players, and he goes on to sign a massive deal. There was so much talent. David Bruton was a backup. You were a backup. Mm-hmm. I was a backup. I just remember everybody taking ownership of their job and their responsibility. So I know probably 3 games into the year, I made a commitment to myself. If special teams is going to be my majority role, then I'm going to give everything I had to it. I only started 3 games that year, but I felt like the special teams unit, although we don't get a lot of credit, we were hunting.
On it.
We were hunting. And from Kayvon to Cody to you to me to Corey, it was a unique group of individuals that took ownership of what the team needed them to do, and went as hard as they could at it. And on top of that, I remember Super Bowl practice, like the back of my hand, we were in like a walkthrough for special teams, and guys were like looking at the cards. And like, I'm like, y'all, this is like 3 days before the Super Bowl. Like, we need to be on point. Man, we started going back and forth. We're arguing with each other, like, cussing each other out. But it meant that much to us that we, made everybody take ownership and be ready. Like, this is the most important game of our lives. Like, we can't mess this up. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned, players got the bag after. You were one of those guys. I was so happy for you. You'd earned, not given. Walk us through the moment when you kind of got that call from your agent, like, hey, you're about to get the bag. Where were you? What was that like? What did it feel like?
It was a great moment for me. I felt like, all my hard work, was kind of starting to pay off, and I just felt extremely blessed. I think I was at home with my wife and my mom and dad that came up. It was tough because the Broncos actually didn't offer me the contract that I ended up signing. So they offered me a little bit lower, and then the Steelers called, and they're the ones that gave me the contract with the exact numbers that I ended up signing with the Broncos, because I was like, all right, I'm going to just go play for the Steelers. And Broncos like, nah, we'll match it. And so I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to go to Pittsburgh anyway.
That East Coast time zone don't play, man.
Exactly. That wind coming off that leg, like, I don't really want to deal with it. So then I ended up.
With Mike Tomlin.
Oh, 100%. You'd have loved him.
Don't tell me that, because now I feel like I should win.
Hey, no, man.
No, you didn't. You made the right decision.
Yeah, so then they ended up matching it, and then the rest is history, man. It was just a great moment. I think my mom and dad and my wife were there when I signed my contract. But it was just awesome. I think it's awesome when, like, you work so hard for something and it finally comes together. So that's how it felt.
Todd, you've been smart ever since I met you. You're very intentional about things that you're doing. You signed that type of contract, and we all know the statistics about NFL players going broke, this and that. Tell us how you started thinking about not necessarily life after football, but how you wanted to save your money, but then also the lessons that you wanted to teach your kids.
Everybody hears the horror stories about going broke, and I never wanted to be one of those guys. So definitely kept that in the back of my head. And for me, my job as a father is to leave an inheritance to my children's children. Mm-hmm. So I immediately started thinking, okay, like, this is a great starting point. How can I grow this into more money and really an inheritance for my children's children? So I got with a good financial advisor who has been instrumental along the way, as far as helping me invest money into real estate, just helping me cross my T's and dot my I's so that I know where every dollar is going and every dollar is being spent. And that's the same thing I want to teach my kids, is that it's great to make money, but I think it's worse to have money and lose it. Mm-hmm. So I want to prepare them to be great stewards of their money. So, I think the adage of, save $1, spend $1, and invest $1, I think that's, very, very key information I try to teach my kids now. So at no point could you go broke, but at the same time, you're preparing yourself to have more money and just continuing to save, continuing to invest, continuing to do things the right way.
Well, you had to build new skills in the NFL to get that contract, a.k.a. the bag. How did you, and I love real estate with you. Mm-hmm. One word, deductions. They just toss that in rookie minicamp, right? What skills did you add to be successful in real estate?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the NFL is a unique place to try and to play, because you always want to better yourself from what you were last year, but I think that's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times as NFL players, we find different ways to get better. And I don't know if it makes us better. Like, I know for 1 year I was a vegetarian, primarily because of DT. Shout out to DT.
Did we do that the same year?
It might have been the same year.
Because I did a vegan that year.
Okay.
Yeah. Bro, I was shredded, but I was weak as
And that's exactly what happened to me. Like, my brain felt good. I was shredded, but I just didn't have that same power that I had that I normally played with. So now in real estate, I try to find things that are actually making me better, not things that on paper I think will make me better, or things that, a book says will make me better. I have to do the research to make sure that this is the right step that's going to actually add value to myself and my company, and not just dive into something because it feels good at the moment. Actually make sure every step I'm taking is actually making me better.
So would you watch a YouTube page on how to find contractors? Would you find YouTube page? Would you read about, how to build a development company? What were the tactical, actual things you did?
Yeah, so I've definitely read a lot of books throughout my time as a real estate developer, but my most important piece is my mentors. Mm-hmm. So there's guys in the industry that I really look up to, EB, Haroon Collins, guys that I consistently call and pull on to get information from that have been in the business much longer than I have. Everybody goes through stumbling blocks, but if I can limit a few of mine through, men that have been in the business longer than me, giving me inspiration and telling me some key points, I want to limit as many stumbling blocks as possible. So I think having great mentors in your life is not an easy way to get ahead, but it definitely springboards you a lot faster.
1,000%. When you think about just being in the real estate industry, to be honest, really just the investment world now, because you're building this fund and you're doing some incredible things. Have you ever, or I know you probably have, what's it like and how have you gotten over imposter syndrome? Like, because you just retired from the NFL. I know I have it sometimes where I'm in these rooms or I'm talking about something and it's like, damn, I've only been talking about this, or I've only been learning about this for a year. And these people are in this room who have been doing this for 20 years and I'm putting this fund together or this and that. Like, how do you navigate that?
I felt like I used to feel like, I'm just talking because I really don't know what I'm talking about. But the more I've learned about people and their starts and their stories, I feel like everybody's faking it till they make it. I think you look at, if you read Donald Trump's book, if you read Ryan Serhant's book, like he talks about before he was on $1 million listing, they were trying to evaluate the different agents who they were going to have on. So he knew the day specifically they were going to evaluate him. So he just packed it full of like random appointments. He had his driver just drive him and he would tell them, oh, I can't stay long, I got another appointment. He didn't have anything to do, but he was faking it till he made it. And now you see him in that same position now. And I think so many people are like that. And I just feel like now I've learned that I'm just playing the game. When I get it, I'll get it. But at every point, people started where they didn't know. And you got to fake it till you make
Football.
it. Yeah.
Football.
Yeah.
I was faking it until I made it.
Shoot.
I'm still faking
You made it.
I was faking it when I was in there.
Tell us about your fund and how people will benefit themselves by joining your fund and what you do with it.
Yeah, so my fund kind of has 3 prongs. One is a nonprofit. 2 is an investment side of the fund where we invest in spec homes and then also like multifamily properties, townhomes. And then we also have an affordable housing wing of the fund. So those are the 3 major things that we do with our fund. And my goal is, to make Denver the most beautiful community in the world. I could have went back home and started a real estate development firm there, but I felt like Denver was the perfect place for it. Not only was the market great, I love the people, I love the energy of the city, and I just felt like this was probably the best place for me to really plant my feet.
You're a champion here too.
And get things started here. My wife is in real estate and she works with the fund as well. She's our agent. And then we have partnered with a construction company. So we GP all the projects together. It's going great now. I think we've really kind of got our footing and understanding the market and really building things out.
Let's dream out 20 years from now. What does the Davis Fund look like?
20 years from now, the Davis Fund looks like a Capstone or a major development group. It looks like when you drive through I-25, you see at least 5 Davis complex or complexes that I've named after my kids. Like that's one thing that I feel like is important. Every so often I'll drive my kids by my property, say, Dad built that. Dad started that from the ground up, and I want them to be able to see that, and I want them to be able to understand, you can take nothing and make it something, and it's tangible, something you can touch and something that I've built. So at some point you'll see, apartment complex named after all my kids, and hopefully we have offices here, Las Vegas, California, Texas.
Dream big.
Oh, come on, man. That's a beautiful dream.
Yeah.
You talked about your kids a couple of times. Do you have them playing one sport, and why not?
No, they are multi-sport athletes.
Wait, but you play football in the NFL. Don't they have to start early and become a football player early?
No, there's a lot of things I feel like you learn in basketball that help you in football. My son's a tight end now, and he's great at downfield, catches and positioning his body, and I think that's all from rebounding in basketball. So, my kids run track, they play soccer, they play football, they play basketball. So they kind of do it all. I think there's so much carryover. I mean, if you start with soccer, your feet work's going to be that much better once you get to football. Basketball, when you're playing defense, you're just a linebacker, sideline to sideline. So I think there's a lot of carryover between sports.
How the Broncos going to do this year? If you had to put a record on it.
I think they're going to be solid. And you know why? Because this fall I'll be an intern with the Broncos.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I think the Broncos are gonna be great.
Yeah. What are you gonna be? You gonna be coaching linebacker?
Yeah. So I'll be an intern with them.
First of all, Broncos are lucky to have you back in the building.
Thank
Second
you,
of all, how did that come about? I mean, you've got your real estate company and development going on. That's how much you want to make an impact with others. You're coming back to coaching. How did that happen?
Yeah, so this is breaking news. I haven't, really told anybody yet.
Okay.
I don't know.
You
when
heard
the
it here first.
You
Put
heard
on
it
your
here
gloves.
first.
podcast
Yeah.
comes out, but really, I kind of got into coaching just a little bit in the off season. I would coach some of the linebackers, and then I was working with Lauren Landau and then coaching guys, for their pro day and for the combine. And so I kind of fell in love with it a little bit, started coaching my sons, basketball teams. And then this spring, I was at CU as an assistant linebacker coach all spring. And I was just like, man, this is it for me. So, it was kind of toss up, like, do I stay at CU or do I take the opportunity to the Broncos? I decided to go to the Broncos, and let's just see how it goes. I'm excited.
Wow.
What was it like working at CU? What's Deion like as a leader? What did you like, or what do you like about CU?
I loved my time at CU. I think Deion's a great leader, and he's the perfect leader for that program. I think he really knows how to connect with his players, and just the attention to detail and the expectations are very high. He's the kind of coach, like, if he says the meeting starts at 7, he's starting talking at 6:55, and if you're not in your seat, just go home. Like, he's definitely on
that.
point, with the expectations for his players. I think he does a great job for it, and I know he gets a lot of, flack in the media and stuff like that, but I honestly feel like he gives everybody an honest opportunity. Now, if you're late and you're not putting forth effort, what do you expect me to do?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I have given you every opportunity to be great. So CU was great. Coach Livingston, the defensive coordinator, was awesome. I love their staff. So, yeah, I think they're going to have a good year.
People who hate on Deion, Denzel Washington has this quote: "Those who can do, those who can't talk about those who can."
Yeah.
So if you don't like Deion or you don't like the way he go about his business, then you should replace him.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then stop talking.
Exactly.
Well, I'm sure, all of us had things that changed forever when we won the Super Bowl. But one of the things that changed for me that I recognize in Deion Sanders, the way he speaks is how champions speak, right? They had a 5-star cornerback, I think, and they're like, why isn't he playing? He's like, he doesn't know the plays. Like, this is not, like, to your point, you're saying, like, hey, what do you want me to do here? This is how you win. And if you're not going to be in here to win, I can't help you. And I love being in that environment. How do you bring that championship knowledge that you learned from winning a Super Bowl, and how do you tell it to people to make sure it sticks with them?
I think the best way to do that is to break it down. I think sometimes the championship can look so big and so far away that you have to kind of break it down to people and kind of let them understand the championship habits that happen day in and day out.
Yes.
Like, being a champion is not something that happens overnight. It takes time, it takes work, it takes preparation, it takes dedication. So if you can try to instill those traits into people, then at some point they'll be a champion, but you just have to kind of allow them to grow in that champion mindset, not just expect them to have it, one day after.
What was the first moment you had to really choose a championship mindset, that you really had to make a leap or a realization or admit to accountability that ended up putting you on the path to be a champion?
I think it was the mindset of just being the best special teams player I could be at the time that I had. I think had I moped or was sad that I wasn't getting more playing time and they got me out here playing special teams and I'm running for my life, I'm out here killing myself and I'm not getting enough credit, I think that would have held me back.
Wow.
But I think it was the ability to see that as an opportunity. And I think that in that opportunity is when I actually got my shot to be the starting linebacker, because they saw how I prepared for games. They saw how, I worked day in and day out just to play special teams. So I think that's what allowed me to be a champion instead of getting down on myself and feeling like I really wasn't getting my shot.
I feel like the Broncos organization and maybe New Orleans are the two organizations that I played for that special team was just as important as being on offense and defense, and they made you feel like it. Like,
And it is. It is.
I never once felt when we were playing here that special teams looked down upon.
No.
Like, the special teams meeting meant everything, and like they weren't taking time from the special teams coach.
No.
That's a great mentality you have, though, an abundance mindset. You not scarcity or like the poor me's. Todd, man, it's been incredible to have you on the show, man. You're inspiring to all of us, and as we were just talking about before the show, it's like shout out to Bubba Caldwell and Kayvon Webster, Jordan Norwood, obviously Peyton, David Bruden, but so many people on this team, TJ Ward, Chris Harris, so many people on that Super Bowl team are doing things life after sports, and it's so incredible to see what you have done and what you are doing.
To wrap it up, what are 3 pieces of advice you give people who are making a transition, whether it's from college to the NFL, NFL out, new job, whatever it is? What are 3 key things you think will help them in that transition?
Probably first, I would say, even though you don't know, go. Like, even though you don't have all the answers and you don't know how it's going to work out, some people get stuck in that planning phase and never take the step. So I would say plan, but take the step, and then continue to get better over time and allow yourself to make mistakes. But do what you want to do and work hard at it. 2, I feel like hard work beats talent. And I think hard work, will mend a lot of mistakes. So continue to do all that you know how to do and do it with great detail. And, God will send people your way and open doors for you. Like, it'll just happen just because of the work ethic you're putting in. And then 3, I think keep God first. I think if you do everything as unto God and you keep your mind on Him, I think that helps with the anxiety you could feel with starting something new. It helps with the peace that you can have undergoing this transition. So I think those are my 3 key points to, starting something new, getting on your feet, and new transition.
Everybody, he is Todd Davis, Super Bowl champion, my
life
man.
Life champion. Thanks for joining us, brother.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gridiron and Growth with your co-host Ryan Harris and myself. Big shout out to Big Up Studios and Streamline Media for all their help with everything that we do. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Please leave a review, and please send us any questions at the gridironandgrowthpod@gmail.com.